The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, let's get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar. Thank you for joining Building a Future-Ready Food and Beverage Business with Sage X3 Solutions, brought to you by our team at PANI Management. We will show how the features in Sage X3 will save you time and efficiently plan requirements, track processes with added visibility, and show how easily traceability and product recall is to use. So PANI Management has been delivering solutions on Sage X3 since 2009. It's a gold partner with Sage. We serve a multitude of industries, including the food and beverage industry, such as distribution, manufacturing, oil and gas, and cannabis. We serve clients around the globe. To start off with, let's introduce some of the presenters today. So Abubakar Asif is the founder and president of PANI Management. Abu's integral in exceeding customers' expectations and delivering unparalleled value to the market in technology solutions. Alex, next up, is a senior business analyst with PANI Management and brings a depth of experience in distribution and manufacturing companies. As for me, I'm James Hearn, senior financial consultant. I have many years of experience at the senior level in accounting and finance in private and public companies. So again, here's a look at our company and how we serve clients in many industries around the globe. So Sage X3 as an overview to a solution to your business. It works in many areas, covers lots of areas of your company, starting off with financial management, budgeting through your budgeting process, fixed assets, financial reporting, and dashboards so that you can look at them away from the office and on the road. It's a web-based product, so you can access it in any browser, any device. Supply chain management, from procurement the whole way through your production cycle, so inventory and warehousing, sales and customer service, and heavily involved with your production management, bills and materials, production planning, shop floor control, quality control, and project management. So within project management, there's also the definition and execution of the project, timesheet, working with time, the allocation of labor, and financial tracking. So within the highlights of food and beverage, there's location management, high degree of quality control, ingredients and recipe management. Alex will go over this in just a few minutes. Product traceability, so the legal requirements for operators, product traceability, compliance and governance, and planning and forecasting. So for the webinar today, if you have any questions, please write them in your chat box in the GoToWebinar, YouTube, Facebook, or wherever you're watching. We would love to hear from you. We'll try and answer the questions when we get the time in the Q&A segment of the webinar. This webinar is recorded and will be shared with everyone via email. PANI records all webinars as a corporate policy. So the agenda for today. After our brief introduction to PANI and Sage X3, Abu will discuss the food and beverage industry in terms of upcoming trends, adapting and changing to regulations, and keeping up with compliance and business activities. After that, Alex will show requirement planning, allergen tracking, and supply chain visibility on an introductory demonstration in Sage X3. And then I'll demonstrate product recall and traceability features that will maintain company requirements and reputation to be completed with minimal effort. To close out the webinar, we'll have the Q&A session and encourage everyone to fill out the feedback form. Over to you, Abu.
Thank you, James. Next slide, please. So, so food and beverage is a complex industry. The requirements change whether you're on the agriculture side of the business or in the beverage side of the business, and even within the food, whether you're a processing plant, are you processing meat, are you a dairy farm, etc. So what I've done today, I have picked up two key elements within the food and beverage industry. One is the traceability of food, which has been getting impacted by recent regulatory changes, changing consumer demands on the landscape, as well as supply chain visibility, which has become more exceedingly important in the post-COVID-19 world, where supply chains have become complex. It's multi-country, it's multi-geographical, where an event in one part of the world can drive up costs, and and the availability becomes an issue for your raw materials. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So what is food traceability? From a purely, no, sorry, previous slide, James.
Yes.
So from a purely regulatory perspective, food traceability is the requirement that you're able to trace one step forward into your supply chain, so which customers you're sending your product to, as well as one step backward in your supply chain. However, that's that's a more simplistic view of the traceability. Sorry, with James, previous slide, please.
My bad. Sorry.
So from the consumers of today, they're driving a more significant challenge to food traceability. They want to know where the food is coming from, which country the food is coming from, and whether, even if the food is local. So by local, it doesn't mean the same country. It means, whether the food is being procured within the 100 miles of where I'm buying the food. So from a technical perspective, traceability involves documenting each step of the process and linking those processes as well during your entire food supply chain. So for example, where you're receiving the product from, when you have received the product, where it's being manufactured, which machine it is being manufactured, and how are you linking everything together. Now, next slide, James. So what are the key challenges, in implementing food traceability? One of is, changing consumer preferences. Consumers want local, they want they want to know whether it's being produced in an ethical standard or not. So if you're a food manufacturer, you may be able to get away, for example, by just tracking the inputs and the outputs, where it's going to which customer it is going towards. But if you're selling your food product in a grocery chain, a consumer walks up to the shelf, they want to scan that food item and they want to know the entire supply chain, where all the ingredients are coming from. Not only they want to know where the ingredients are coming from, there are also food preferences, whether that food has been produced according to an ethical standard, right? Whether they are paying if you're procuring food from another country, whether they're following the ethical wage standards. The other challenge is you have conflicting demand from national regulators. So for example, you're a food manufacturer here in Canada and you're supplying food products to the US and to the European market. You have two very different regulatory challenges. You have the additives which are allowed in European Union versus the United States are different. And similarly, other than additive allergen tracking, what the European Union regards as allergen, they want more allergens to be tracked compared to the US market, for example. So your systems now must be able to comply and easily identify those unique changing requirements for different regulatory landscape. Then you have the accurate data capture. Your plants, you're doing a 24-hour shift or a 16-hour shift. The demand from your customer is high. You have all those different technologies. So today you're doing barcode scanning, but you can make a mistake in barcode scanning. If you're more of a manual shop, are you entering the right lot numbers, for example? You picked up a bag of potatoes in your chips manufacturing facility. Did you choose the right lot? Did you enter the right lot numbers into that system? So accurate data is always going to be an issue. And you can only invest, you need to keep investing and making sure those business processes deliver on those accurate data requirements. And then traceability varies by the industry. So if you're in agriculture, for example, you have to trace from the seed in some industries. If you're fishing or farming, you have to start traceability from where your livestock was born. If you're a food manufacturing or processing plant, then you have to trace all the inputs from suppliers and which customer it is going to. If you're a manufacturing facility, You may be choosing, for example, if you're making peanut butter jam, you may be making, using 8 different lots. So your systems and processes must ensure that you have the right traceability of all those lots going into that product and where it's going to the customer. Again, retail and food service can be different. So you have one step backward traceability requirement, but as a retail and a food service, you do not have to track each and every customer which is consuming that product. So you do not have that forward traceability requirement. And similarly, the transportation and distribution, IoT is coming in. You have to track, on the way bill, which supplier the product's coming from, which customer it's going to. You have to worry about which source where you're picking up the product from. You have to worry about contamination issues and so on. Next slide, please. So what are the, based on our experience in the industry for the last 10 years, we have the 4 tips which we think will improve your traceability processes. And it's imperative that you improve those processes. If you have to do one recall, the image that can set up in the market can really destroy your brand. So one of the first things that you have to do is to improve record tracking and record keeping. It is imperative that you have the processes in place, that you have proper storage of all the information. You are recording each and every step of the way. For example, when you're receiving a product, which site you receive, when did you move it across, where it's in the supply chain, and be able to easily access those records. Developing visibility into the supply chain. When a food product recall happens, and if you're a manufacturing facility, you want to be able to remove that recall product right from your manufacturing facility. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of product. There's a study which suggests that up to 50% of the food is wasted during recalls because the records are not there to accurately trace it. One of the key things that you have to do is invest in the ERP systems. A lot of companies, they use these disparate ERP systems. For example, you have your own system for financials, then you're tracking your manufacturing, then you are on the shop floor, you're using a different system for receiving the inventory, and when you're trying to combine all the data, it leads to inaccuracies and errors. So for example, the product code definition in one of your manufacturing systems may be different from your ordering system, your financial system. So trying to match the two and making sure everything is accurate becomes a problem. So investing in the right ERP system, ideally you'd want to invest in a system which can track everything together in one system, which will significantly improve your record keeping abilities and be able to do a quick, accurate food traceability within your processes. And James is going to show you just that into the presentation. And one of the most important things that you can do is conduct mock recalls. There's no way to test your process than actually doing a mock recall. We find that a lot of our clients actually do not go through that process. It is the only thing which would accurately predict how accurate your process is when the actual recall comes in. Thanks, James. Next slide. So the next concept I'm going to talk about is the supply chain visibility. Increasing in a post-COVID world, this is becoming, because of supply chain bottlenecks, this is becoming increasingly important. So supply chain, it does not just mean just tracking of the product orders and product physical shipment from the source. It not only includes the logistic activity, the transport, but also the state of events, where the product is, what step it moved from, for example, from your cargo or your truck to your actual facility, when did you transfer the product between the two states, where the product is on a rail car. For example, if you're importing product, which rail car is it on, which yard is it on, how long will it take to get to your facility. If you're importing products from overseas, which port the product is on, when do you expect it to receive it on your the port nearest to you, and so on, and then planning everything around that. So the key objective is, to enhance and empower your supply chain. So it's making your people have those decision-making capabilities. So you can inform your customers on time when they can receive the product, and you can also inform your manufacturing facilities, your distribution facilities when you can receive product from your own suppliers. Next slide, James. So these are some of the key trends that we have been noticing in the supply chain industry around supply chain visibility. One of the most important thing is freight visibility. What I mean by freight visibility is knowing where exactly your product is in the in-transit stage. So for example, you're importing peanuts from Turkey, for example, which ship is it on, which container is it on, when do you expect it to arrive to the nearest port? So not only does it arrive at the port, then you may have an inland transportation route from the port to your facility. So knowing exactly where it is, when do you expect it, and also anticipating any delays during that process. The other one is access to data. If you are on an old school system, you have to go to the office to access the data. Key people in your company do not have access to the data to make those informed decisions, then it becomes very challenging. The other trend is cloud-based technologies. Again, it revolves around access to data, but cloud-based technologies are really enabling that access to data. They are, people from around the office, especially in this hybrid work environment, they can access the data from home, they can access the data from work. And if you're a multi-facility environment, then you can have the same system providing you access to information across all your geographies where you're operating from. The other one is lowering cost of operations. The latest investments in technology, in cloud-based technologies, are making it easier for companies to access those IT technologies. So for example, IoT technologies, if you're a transportation company, monitoring the temperature and so on of your trucks, you're making sure everything's in the right place, is becoming more accessible and easily and at a lower cost as well. Quickly changing demand cycles. We experienced that, when the COVID shut down, the demand cycle changed. People went from, having a shared bag of chips to having small packets individualized for everyone, to now suddenly when things are opening up, again, the demand cycle is changing. Restaurants are opening up. The food items which were not that in demand, for example, packed like eggs for the transportation industry around cruise ships. Now suddenly they're back in demand again, and so again, so you have to shift to those demands basically based on the environment outside. Next slide, please. So, these are 6 tips, again, based on our industry experience and what we are seeing out in the market, how you can improve the supply chain. The most important thing is to invest in the right platform. If your platform cannot talk to different organizations, if you cannot integrate with your suppliers using your technology platform, if you cannot integrate with your customers, that is going to be a real problem in making your supply chain visible. The next important thing would be to attract the right talent. The systems, they're becoming more complex. You need the people who can access those IT systems to make those decisions. So if you have the best in the breed, but your people are not trained to use those systems, then they are not going to deliver the value for you. The other would be to manage and standardize the data. So if you are having disparate systems in your organization, so for example, a product code in your accounting system is different than a product code in your manufacturing system. If your supplier code is different between the two, then it adds to the cost of the process, becomes really cumbersome. And similarly, you also have to harmonize across your organization. So product codes from your suppliers can be different from product codes that you are using. So it will be worth the effort to invest in that and harmonize it so that you can reduce the errors and make it more streamlined. Drive efficient decision making. So you have the data, you have the tools, but if you cannot act on that data, you cannot immediately act on that data, then it becomes, you're not getting the value out of it. And developing an extended ecosystem, so you're having your suppliers, you're sharing data, you're sharing the technology space with them, you're using similar tools and technologies to really drive the supply chain visibility across not only in your company, but across from the source to the customers. Right, next slide. I think over to you, Alex. So, he's going to show you some of the requirement and supply chain visibility features in Sage X3.
Thank you, Abu. I was just getting my microphone. Get it? So I wanted just to confirm that everybody can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So one of the first things that we're going to be checking would be part of the requirement for all the planning. We know that planning in this part of the industry is very important. So of course, we're talking about inventory. We're talking about products that are coming back and forth, products that are going to be used at certain points. So we have many different techniques, and one of them could be reordering, reordering point planning. We have also the time of having the times phase planning. And of course, we also have the capability to have a full, complete material required planning. This involves basically the options from products being present, the exact moment when they are required. And of course, they also have about the balance between having the correct products in the correct time at the correct moment in order then to produce information. So a lot of these things about the planning is a very important tool, and it does require about the information that you have into the system. One of the planning features is that, well, you need to know a little bit about how you or what you are going to use, what you're going to be selling to your clients. So we have an options in order to include a demand forecast. We have different options, and in this case, you can place it as a graph. You can enlarge it by weeks, by months, and these will tell you, well, according to the quantities, the pieces that you are going to sell in each of your months, according to your bill of material, according to your lead times on productions and your lead times of your suppliers. This will be able to go all the way back in order to define when you need to receive the merchandise, and also, most important, when you need to launch your purchase order to your different suppliers. So of course, here you can have different options to check on different products. So every product has its unique type of demand. So of course, this is something that you can manage and you can change it according to your needs. This is very important that here you can have a visibility of maybe 12 months or 18 months from your time. And of course, everything would be changed in the system. I need to just get back on this one. And so that's one of the key features about your demanding plan, knowing what you are going to sell. And of course, you also have the options about what are your sales that are already part of your contract, future sales. You know, sometimes you have clients and you know that some of those sales, you are going to have it into your system. So all of that information is basically captured into your system as long as your bill of materials in order to identify part of your requirements. So let's just talk about a little bit of your general part, and we saw a little bit about my my products. So I'm going to check about, well, my product. Let's just select one, and let's just only select on all the way to December of this year. So as you can see, part of my information on my feedback of my requirement for my forecast, well, here's my work order that I should be able to launch over September in order to have information from the months of October, November, according to my information. So of course, here you can have as all the information for your finished good products. Okay, but of course, well, what's going to happen on your intermediate products? So just only like a very simplistic information. We're just talking about the finished good, then your intermediate finished good product, and we're just going to be able to search. So according to my finished good requirements, then I'm going to go backwards to identify, well, what are my requirements in this specific for my intermediate products? So here it tells me that in order to produce and to launch this work order, I'm going to need to have ready 6,000 pounds for September. About that part, and of course that would be part of this material requirements. And of course this goes on and on all the way to my timing. But of course, how this is linked to now what's happening with my raw materials? Well, basically part of my part, if one of the raw materials that it will be part of that finished good product. Well, now we're going to check it, and then we can see, well, according to these raw materials, then you're going to need to have all this information, all this material in time, and of course use your suggestions and your purchase orders. Here's a big suggestion about 36,000 pounds. And then, of course, that would be good enough to have this part. So, of course, whenever you change, remember that every day your system changes data. Every day you have transactions, inventory coming in, inventory coming out, and everything is basically evolving into your process. Okay, so here you just basically your work orders about how this material is going to be consumed according to your different months. Okay, and that's a little bit about your process for your information of how your system is going to be required on your traceability. All of this is also part of your planning, but each and every of your products involving in your bombs, it has information about how you get these bombs, how you get your recipes. And let's say here, basically we have a finished good products, and your finished good products, when I go to the multi-level, you can see in a very graphical part, what are all the components to have this information. So in order to create 6 pounds of these finished goods, well, you need to have all of these your intermediate product, that all of this, when it's compounded, is basically mixed with all of these of your raw materials. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different raw materials that are going to be linked. And each of every one of these recipes as part of your bill of materials has its unique amount to be involved in a manufacturing process. Of course, at the end, you also have some packaging materials that is also part of your general tracking. So as you can see, whenever I see what are my components, my raw components to a finished good products, here are all the list of the product: oats, flax seeds, canolas, and everything is being tracked. Whenever I create a work order, it will tell me how much pieces you will need to supply according to fulfill your needs. Okay, and of course, this is a very simple example about basically having a finished good product that is packed in a bag that involves your intermediate. This is part of a granola part, and it's kind of very simple, just granola in a box, all completely placed and mixed. All of this is also being captured. As you can see, this is the management by the unit, is by specific by a lot number. So all of each and every of these products are going to be tracked, either how they were purchased, to whom they were purchased, when they were received, and of course everything is also being part of your quality control process of accepting products in and out. Okay, so this is part of a general part of a manufacturing. You can have as long as complex as you can require or see it. So of course here, if I just hear fin 2 and fin 1, you can say, well, do I have products that are similar on their composition? Well, yes, we can see here, this is another type of granola, and it is part of my different intermediate. But when I go here, I also see that I do have similar products that have the same usage, different quantities, in order to combine the finished good one, my granola 1 or my granola 2, and this is depending on the recipe for each of your bags. Even despite that they have similar products or the same product, the quantities would be different. So whenever I mix and input this information into my database about all my tree information and bill of materials, whenever I link this into my demand planning, how much or when I'm going to be able to be using, is basically when I can identify all my information about my planning. So we do have the options about having the purchasing part of your area, as well as your manufacturing part of your information of your system. Okay, so if I just go here, basically I will need to say, hey, I would like to see what are my purchase order suggestions. So I click basically my purchase order suggestions, and I can just select any specific product, or let's say a range of products, and then identify up to when I'm going to be able to use this. Let's say just a big purchase, and I just basically click search. So here right now, it will tell me that, well, out of these products, you're going to be requiring to have a purchase order that is already there, and you will need to track it. Of course, it will also be part of your work order. So this is a purchase order suggestion about having these products in order to build this part. So I'm going to spend the example on the products. So I'm going to select basically all my range of products. And of course, this will guide me a lot more visibility of each and every of my purchase orders that I need to capture. And of course, it's not only about what product I need to request, but of course, what product, which is my suppliers. In this case, in a cinnamon, I don't have a specific supplier, but I do know that I need to launch a purchase order. So this is a work order in order then to being consumed. Okay, so all of this is my POS. All of these are suggestions that I need to create in order then to have my materials. So as you can see here is that, well, in order to fulfill your work orders that are going to be in September, you'll need to purchase all this material before in order to have it at the moment that you are going to require. So we know that a lot of people, they use different systems, they use different spreadsheets in order to identify when I should be able to purchase, when I should be able to launch a work order. And one of the great benefits that X3 has is basically the functionality of running this great tool for the material planning. Okay, we have also part of the scheduling in order to identify how your work orders are going to be mixed and how they are going to be managed. So just on basically say work orders, if I just here also a click status, you also have a very graphical information about what is happening with that work order. So in this case, it is what it was planned originally and what was the real part that were consumed in order to create that work order. So you have all these great tools about graphical areas in order to identify how my work orders are being fulfilled. In this case, was basically a perfect information about expecting 3,000 pieces, and we did consume 3,000 pieces on your operations. In the upper part, we have the options that how many pieces we're going to produce, 30,000 pieces. Did we produce 30,000 pieces? Yes, it was nothing was rejected. And all of this basically is being tracked within your lot numbers. So you can see here, in every of the time, in every of your transactions, you can select your lot numbers, which are going to be your lot numbers that you're going to decide, or let the system select your lot numbers whenever you are going to be having that part. It will also tell you if you have a shortage or it's already being good. So if I had just only see here this information about, well, going to this intermediate product, this is a firm order, and at this moment I see that in order to produce this amount of this amount of product, 1,200 pounds for this intermediate, I do require all of these products at the same time. It's basically telling me how much I want, what is available, and of course, if I would be having a shortage, it will tell me about this area. Well, you do have a shortage. In this case, I can just basically indicate and complete this work order, selecting, doing the scheduling, and sending all the way wherever this would be part of the process. So the process for planning and this required material is very simplistic in order to do, yes, once we have the correct information. Remember, they have this great part, garbage in, garbage out. You do need to have your correct information from your database into the system in order to produce good numbers. That means that you will need to know what are your lead times on your different suppliers. What are your lead times on your freights, as Abu was telling about all these part of the supply chain, since your supplier is receiving a purchase order and is sending you the product all the way that you will be able to receive that information. So generally speaking, we have here like a roadmap, a dashboard that it will help you. And this is a very holistic area of how you can manage your food and beverage, food and beverage manufacturing facility. So you start basically within your quotes, your sales orders, you run also in order to your sales forecast. You check about your requirements and you define, well, I need to purchase. Yes, you need to, your purchasing workbench, you create your purchase orders. At the end, you do the tracking on your supply chain. And then at the end, you receive information, you receive your products linked to your quality management. Once again, once we have all your products in your manufacturing facility, of course, you can go ahead on your manufacturing part. So it's basically your workbench, your batch control, your production scheduling, your product tracking, and once again, it just goes linked to your quality control management in order then to release your product that either has been received or internally manufactured in order to have the options to being delivered to your clients. So of course, we have here a complete process for your quotes, your sales, all the way your internal requirements in order to manufacture and supply your parts. And at the end, you have your deliveries that eventually is going to be transferred to your accounts receivable and of course part of your accounts payable, as everything is being integrated into one big simple software. Okay, so that's basically like a very simplistic but complex part of your material planning information that you should have in order to be much efficient. Okay. The other part that I want to check about, and is of course very important nowadays, is that, well, what happens with my allergens? Well, in this case, we have here a finished good product. Is once again this granola fin 501. We have many different products that are already part of my finished goods. And one of the key information that we have is the allergens. Okay, so in this case, the product 501 determines that according to my bill of materials and the information that I've placed at the raw material pertaining to the different sectors for each of the products, this product tells me that the food allergens pertains to a code. This is a little bit like kind of a international internal code about having D and N. So what does D and N means? In this case, means that this product, the D is the code to manage sesame seed, and the N is the code to manage nuts. So of course we have in the system many different allergens that are being tracked through the parts. So if I just go also to my intermediate product, the same product 501, intermediate product, we're going to see that, well, that product as part of my process intermediate, yes, it's also part of my same tracking information for allergens, in this case the N, and of course this is being tracked through the process to all the way to your finished good. So whenever you do the process or you incorporate a new BOM, a new product into your bill of materials, and that bill of materials is identified with a specific allergen, yeah, you can go ahead, do a roll-up of your food allergens, and now you'll be able then to identify which are your allergens that that product has. The system has the capability to manage as many, sorry, as I said, the system has the capability to manage as many allergens as you can have. So you can track eggs, you can track milk, you can track nuts, peanut, wheat, and many other products. So let's just only like put, okay, this is a bread. Well, a bread has an allergens. This is not completed. There are different products according to the so this one is not being completely defined, but all of these of the granola, they have already been configured properly about your granola. So in this case, granola walnut, and W means N is nuts, W is for wheat. So that's basically part of that information. And of course, everything goes from your raw materials. Whenever you put either your cornmeal, at your cornmeal, you indicate what are going to be your different allergens that you can have. And of course, all of this, as I was just checking in the system for your enterprise planning, whenever you have this, you do have the option to select what are your products that pertain to a specific allergen. Okay, so you can also search about that information to see, identify, okay, I want to see the products that they pertain to. They have eggs, fish, sulfites, meats, tree, nuts, shellfish, mustard, which are the most common allergen substance that you can have. So that's basically part of information about how you can search and you can guide. And of course, here, once you have this filter, well, it'll tell you, well, you have your egg power. Yes, of course, this is an egg, but also you have here, as part of your intermediate 311, your cinnamon raisin bread. This has 4 different allergens, D, E, M, and W. And you remember, D is season, E, eggs, M, milk, W, wheat. So of course you can track all of this information regarding your food allergens tracking, and it goes basically back and forth from all the way to your raw materials, all the way back to your finished good products. And of course, everything is being linked according to your lot traceabilities. So the last part that I wanted to check with you is about the option for your supply chain and all the information that you will need to capture and to fulfill about how your process, your inputs basically are going to be checking. So here, one of the dashboards that you can see here, we have, well, the options to manage your suppliers, manage your products, manage your request for quotes, and of course the responses that you can have, been also been linked to update your price purchases, and of course all this way goes to your purchase orders. Of course, everything on the second part, well, you have your policies for your reordering points, you have your MRP, you have a B2 business options with your purchase requisitions, approval, signature process, and all of this is basically convoluted into your working bench. At the end, you basically emit and submit your purchase orders. You can also print your purchase orders. Right now we have a paperless. Yes, you create a PDF part of your transaction, and then you send this by email directly from your system according to your requirements. Once, of course, your purchase order is been launched, of course, you have all the different logistics monitorings in order to identify how your supplier is going to be sending you that information, that material, all the way to whenever you have your receiving. So yeah, this is a basically high-level dashboard information about how you can manage your, as I was saying, basically your replenishment, your planning, and all your scheduling, all the way to your purchase orders or managing your working orders. You can also have the ability for your allergens all the way back and forth from the system. And of course, all the information that you can have regarding your input for your supply chain as your inputs in your system. Of course, all of this is also being controlled for your quality control process. Each of them are identified, everything into the system. So with this basically explanation, I would basically complete my presentation and hand it out back once again to James, that he will complete part of my presentation following into the recall product and of course specific criteria for lot traceability. Okay, so let me just get back here and change to James. So once again, James, back to you, and give it a try, give it a shot.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alex. Sorry, I lost the tracking there. Screen. All right. So product traceability and product recall.
James, we see your, there we go. That's great. Perfect.
Now. Okay, great. Thank you. So as I say, traceability and product recall, these are legally required by regulators for the operators that offer food and beverage products to consumers, as everyone knows. The acts that govern these activities in Canada and the US are the Food Safety Act in Canada and the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act in the USA, in addition to the Public Health Services Act in the USA. These acts lay out the guidelines and requirements for risk assessments, tracking of products, and communication with consumers for the products offered to the public. Let's jump into Sage X3 now. You can see the landing page here, and we'll look at the functionality available that saves operators time and effort recording the risk assessments, tracking products with additional visibility into raw materials, and communication with consumers and regulators. So let's go ahead with the product recall first of all. So product recall, what you initially do is you have a call that is a concern on one of your products. So in this scenario, we have the finished good is, the code is FIN 501. We'll see that in a minute. So initially we take a call from a consumer and we're going to record the contact name and information of that person that called in. So in this case, you have John Sniper. We recorded this earlier. So then once we have his information, as we ask him questions on the phone, we're going to record the call. So Mr. Sniper, what have you got for us in terms of your concerns about the product? So in this case, we fill it out. We fill out the information, and he's got concerns on the product. We also have a time frame to do this kind of work. And as Abu noted earlier, the mock recalls really help refine the process and get your time down, because it's very important to uphold your reputation and interact with the public. So at first look, you can see the 5 subject areas directly derived from the requirements from Health Canada. So you've got in the call here, we log the product, okay? And this is what we enter into the recall screen. So we're going to take a look at the requirements from Health Canada as they're noted on the recall screen. So let's go into the recall node on our process map. So you can see it's mock recall. So this is like a training exercise, just to make sure that we can test and prove out our process. So this is Mr. John Sniper. He's got, we register the call. So we would just connect the call directly. We received that today, May 19. So we register the call. And once we connect it, I'll show you this in just a minute, how the product connects. This is affected product. We're doing backward traceability, thinking that it's one of the raw material components. We'll show how that works. So these are the 5 requirements from Health Canada. You've got your reason, so recall, risk evaluation, if the public is in danger or there's any problems. In this case, it's tainted product. We would like the customer to return the product. This is the 4th of the 5 headings. Sorry, this one is, we're going to retrieve the product and analyze it. And then there may be some recall strategy, like is it wider than what we had anticipated? We're going to see that through product traceability in a minute here. So the affected product, as we noted, it's finished good 501. There may be source products, so raw materials that are components of this finished good. These are your sales, your shipments, your sales orders. So these are the affected shipment details that we can retrieve, and you can see how in the next area, as the returns come in, we log those and connect it with the product recall so that we can do the analysis and destroy any product as needed. That's the next area, destruction details. So you can see here in the summary, recall creation, we need to have an anticipated date for closure to maintain, to adhere to timings so that we're, quicker recalls are better, but just what's achievable. 1 affected client, 5 shipments, okay? So once you're to this point, you can choose to print the record, and the historical records are available. We can see them on the left here if there are issues with that supplier, so many goods that supplier is offering, or if it's an internal process that is tainting the goods, we can focus on it in that way. So if you want to look at how quickly we can create a record, we're just going to enter the site, do a test. If I can type here, test, recall date today. We connect it directly with the call. So I'm going to connect it with the call today. And you can see, because we entered into the call, the product, it's going to tell us within the supply chain, what are the affected areas and what we need to take a look at. Okay, so these shipments in that process, so I would start this record in a matter of seconds. That's how easily it can be done. When it comes to communicating with consumers, we go back into the mock recall, and we want to test our process to communicate with consumers. We print this record, and this would be a mail out that is required by Health Canada. Likely also required by the US regulators. So it produces it. We open the file, and it's going to create a PDF that can be mailed out to the consumer. So where it would be from, who the case manager is, and the products within the supply chain. You can see all the shipment details, our notes. So this fulfills all your requirements for the regulators and to communicate with consumers. You can understand how this directly corresponds with product traceability. Let's take a look at that now. So we know we had an issue with FIN 501, the finished good code. So we type that in, 501, grab the lot. It's 111 in this case. And we want to display all selected records, so everything that is affected at that point. So in any way, you can see you have work orders, customer deliveries. These are all the potential areas where it's affected. So you can also look at, like if we want to click on one of these raw materials, say we suspect almonds, these whole almonds are the culprit. So we want to look at, there's many options available that you can click here. If we want to see stock by site, you could look at if you have lots waiting that would taint more goods, you probably want to freeze that. That would be your option at that time. If we wanted to go to downward traceability, we could also do that. We're tracing backwards from finished goods to the raw material in this case, but we want to take a look at more on these raw materials. So you can see how there are components in other raw materials as well. So FIN 521 may also be affected. So it's great in that way. You can get traction very quickly and look at how these things are managed. So if we want to take a look at how this almond quinoa is managed, you can see it's stock managed, meaning it's recorded for stock. Serial numbers not managed, generic numbering, many customizable bits that you can get really finely honed information on your supply chain. So that's a brief look at traceability. We could also print these records. Now what we'd like to do is open it up for a question and answer period. So if there are questions from the floor, we'd be glad to answer them. I think there may be something that we can go into a little more depth on. We have a question from the floor. I think we've got really great coverage today. You can always email in to Penny with any questions or concerns or any product details that you would like from us. We'd be glad to work with you on your questions and concerns and really help you with these processes. As we've illustrated today, there's a lot more that we do as a team, but this area is a great product demo we've done today, I think, pat on our own back, but we've got great coverage today. As we say, feel free to contact us, and you can contact us. You can go to our website and find our company details, or you could feel free and send us an email to info@pennymanagement.com. Great. Well, we thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining, and we look forward to interacting with you, answering your questions, and delivering value if you need help.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a fantastic day.